The slave market on Kepler Station buzzed with the usual cacophony of alien languages and the metallic clink of credits changing hands. James walked through the crowded aisles, his jaw clenched tight as he observed the degrading spectacle that had somehow become normalized across the galaxy. As a human diplomat, he was technically here on official business, investigating reports of illegal trafficking. Unofficially, he was looking for any opportunity to make a difference. The Zephyrian Empire had built their economy on what they euphemistically called genetic partnerships, a system that reduced sentient beings to nothing more than biological resources. The galaxy's major powers had long turned a blind eye to the practice, too dependent on Zephyrian trade routes to risk diplomatic incidents. James paused at a particularly crowded stall where a Vorthan auctioneer was presenting his premium stock. The translator implant in James's ear converted the alien's chittering into cold clinical terms that made his stomach turn. "This specimen shows excellent neural capacity," the Vorthan announced, gesturing toward a young female with distinctive, feline features, pointed ears, golden eyes, and a graceful tail that she kept wrapped protectively around herself. "Unfortunately, genetic scans reveal incompatible breeding markers with our primary clientele. Starting bid, 50 credits. The crowd's interest visibly waned. James watched as potential buyers examined her briefly before moving on, their dismissive expressions making it clear that her defective genetics had rendered her worthless in their eyes. The girl, who couldn't have been more than 20 in human years, kept her head down, but James caught the flash of intelligence and pain in her golden eyes. 40 credits. The auctioneer tried again. "Surely someone has use for manual labor." James felt something snap inside him. He'd witnessed enough of this obscenity. 1,000 credits, he called out, his voice cutting through the crowd. The market fell silent. The Vorthan's compound eyes swiveled toward him in disbelief. "Sir, perhaps you misunderstood the limitations of this particular—" "I heard you perfectly." James stepped forward, his diplomatic credentials visible on his jacket. 1,000 credits. Final offer. The transaction completed in stunned silence. As James led the bewildered, feline girl away from the market, she finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why?" she asked in accented but clear galactic standard. "You could have purchased a dozen others for that price. Better ones." James stopped walking and turned to face her. "What's your name?" She looked up at him, confused by the question. I am designated X7742. "That's not a name, that's a number. What did your family call you?" Her golden eyes widened. "Lisa," she whispered. "My name was Lisa." "Well, Lisa, to answer your question, there are no better ones. There are only people, and people aren't meant to be bought and sold." Over the following weeks, James learned Lisa's story. She belonged to a species called the Felinians, who had been conquered by the Zephyrians 3 generations ago. Her people had been systematically bred for specific traits, but Lisa carried recessive genes that made her unsuitable for the Empire's genetic programs. In their twisted logic, this made her defective. James arranged for Lisa to work as his cultural liaison, a legitimate position that gave her legal status as a free citizen. She proved to be remarkably intelligent, with an intuitive understanding of interspecies dynamics that made her invaluable in diplomatic negotiations. But it was during their 3rd month together that Lisa's true worth became apparent. The station was attacked by raiders from the Outer Rim, pirates who had somehow bypassed the security grid. As chaos erupted through the corridors, James found himself trapped in a service tunnel with several other diplomats, including the Zephyrian trade minister, who had initially dismissed Lisa as genetic waste. Lisa had disappeared in the initial panic, and James feared the worst. Then, through the maintenance shaft above them, her distinctive voice whispered down, "James, I can get you out, but you need to trust me." Her feline genetics, the same traits the Zephyrians had deemed worthless, gave her enhanced agility, night vision, and spatial awareness. She guided them through the station's infrastructure with the grace of her ancestors, avoiding the raiders and leading them to safety. When they finally reached the evacuation zones, the Zephyrian minister stared at Lisa in amazement. "How did you know about those passages?" he asked. Lisa, quota's ears flattened against her head. "My people built them. Before you conquered us, we designed these stations. We know every bolt, every junction, every hidden space. You just never bothered to ask." The minister's expression shifted as the implications hit him. "The construction records, we lost most of them in the war. Our engineers have been working blind for decades." James smiled grimly. "Turns out the genetic waste you were so eager to discard has been sitting on centuries of architectural knowledge. Imagine what else you've thrown away." In the months that followed, Lisa became the first Felinian to be granted full citizenship in the Galactic Council. Her testimony about the slave markets and genetic programs sparked a series of investigations that would eventually bring down the entire Zephyrian trafficking network. But perhaps more importantly, her story spread throughout human space. Another example of humanity's strange tendency to see value where others saw only waste. While other species focused on genetic optimization and utilitarian calculations, humans had an odd habit of recognizing the inherent worth of every sentient being. Standing in the council chambers as Lisa received her citizenship medal, James reflected on what made humanity different. Other species had superior technology, greater physical prowess, more advanced societies. But humans possessed something that couldn't be quantified or optimized: the stubborn belief that every person, regardless of their perceived flaws or limitations, deserved dignity, respect, and the chance to prove their worth. Lisa caught his eye from the podium and smiled. Not the grateful smile of a rescued slave, but the confident smile of a free person who had found her place in the galaxy. And James realized that in saving her, she had saved something in him as well. Sometimes, the most profound act of rebellion was simply treating someone as human,